Wow, it is great to be here today. It's great to see all of you. I want you to take a moment and kind of do a little project with me. Sit back and think about a time in your life when you're starting over again in a completely different place, a whole different setting. I want you to kind of go back to that memory and try to think about how you might have felt, some of the emotions that you were experiencing. Maybe you were anxious. Maybe you were excited. Maybe a little of both. Now, I want you to take the memory of that moment, and I want you to put yourself in a slightly different set of circumstances. Let's imagine that you're coming from a different country, and you are arriving in our beautiful, sunny city of Indianapolis for the first time. But you're not just coming here for a visit. You're coming here because, as a result of war or persecution in your home country, you've had to leave everything behind. You've left behind family, friends, really your entire life. And here you are, sitting on this plane, kind of wondering what this next chapter of your life will hold for you. Will you feel welcomed? What will this new experience be like? Well, every year, hundreds of people are having a really similar experience to this one right here in our city. Refugees from countries like Burma, Iraq, Somalia, the Congo, and numerous other countries are walking through the gates of the Indianapolis International Airport. Add to that immigrants and asylum seekers from many different countries, and you can very quickly see that our city is becoming a destination for people from many different cultures and countries around the world. You know what this means? It means that right now, literally thousands of people in our city are experiencing that first moment, the first day, the first week, the first month that they will spend in our city. Chances are they're feeling a little how you might have felt. Your first moment, your first day. I've witnessed a lot of these first moments. I've spent many hours at the Indianapolis International Airport welcoming refugees from countries like Burma and Somalia. And every time I'm a part of someone's first moments that they're going to spend here in our city, I think back to something that my friend Biak told me. This is Biak. He and his family arrived here from Burma some time ago, and before they arrived here in Indianapolis, they faced forced labor, horrible persecution for their faith in their home country. Biak told me that at times back in Burma, he couldn't feed his family, and he used to lay awake at night wondering how they would survive. Well, when he and his family fled to Malaysia, things got only worse. Biak was arrested 3 times simply for being there as a refugee. It was a nightmare for his family. So I'm sure you can imagine how Biak told me that after he first arrived in Indianapolis, he said there were no words to describe the way I felt when I stepped off the plane. He said he never forgot that first moment. And he's not alone. Many of my refugee and immigrant friends tell me that they often look back on that first moment and they kind of draw some strength from that memory. It helps them to get through the hard times of adjusting and acclimating to their new life here in Indianapolis. I want you to think for a second about the adjustment that it would take if you're coming from a place like a refugee camp and arriving here in a city like Indianapolis. It's a huge learning curve. Did you know that many of the refugees arriving here in our city have spent 10, 15, even 20 years in a refugee camp before coming here? Can you even imagine? This creates a lot of needs. But one of those is a need to understand the basics of life here in the United States. How to run a hot shower. How to do a lot of things. And I've personally had this experience of working with my newly arriving refugee friends and kind of walking them through the basics, like how to start a hot shower, how to safely operate a stove for the first time, how to adjust the thermostat in their new home, not to mention how to DVR Breaking Bad, and also explain that this is not a good example of what to do with your new life in America. But I want you to think for just a second about the level of culture shock that someone coming from a refugee camp might experience in our city. And as one very small example, I want you to think about the concept of transportation. You know, transportation looks very different in many parts of the world. And I can tell you that here we have this concept of buckling individual babies into their own car seats. They stay in car seats until they're like 6 years old today. But this is not the way it is in many parts of the world. And I've had this experience once of trying to explain car seats to a refugee family who had newly arrived in Indianapolis, and they had never ridden in a car before. So the first thing the dad did was clear all the car seats out of the back seat to make room for his family. But then we put the car seats back in, and I was trying to explain what we needed to do with the babies and kind of giving a demonstration. I'm not a parent. I am definitely not an expert at car seats. And I knew that that I had clearly failed in my explanation when I turned around and I saw that the mother had actually installed herself in the car seat along with her baby. Can you even imagine the adjustment? And this was within the first 5 minutes of landing in Indianapolis. A huge adjustment. Well, fortunately for Biak and for his family, that adjustment process is going well. They're getting to know their new neighbors in Indianapolis. They're becoming a part of a community. And I'm really happy to say that today, Biak has a good job. He's able to provide for his family. And his daughters, Mary, Cherry, and Elizabeth, they're all shown here, are excelling in school. And you know, today, cities throughout the United States are realizing just how important it is to welcome people like Biak, refugees and immigrants from all over the world to our cities. Let's think for a second about what refugees and immigrants offer and what they bring to our cities. For one thing, economic development. Did you know that in the most recent growth that our city has seen in recent years can be attributed to refugees and immigrants? More than 40% of recent growth can be attributed to immigrants in Indianapolis. You know, today we even see cities like Detroit and Dayton putting programs in place to salvage abandoned neighborhoods and areas of severe economic decline. Their plan? Welcoming refugees and immigrants. But it goes far beyond economic development. You know, we can also think about the cultural offerings. You know, people are coming from these different countries and they're coming from a totally different culture, a different perspective. This enriches our city in countless ways. I think my favorite aspect of all of this is the relational aspect, getting to know people like Biak and his family. I was recently visiting with Biak and his family, and I had a conversation with Mary. She's pictured here. She's 10 years old, and she was telling me about a project that she's been working on for school about famous Hoosiers. Now, a Hoosier, she was very careful to explain to me, is someone who lives in Indiana, like we do. You know, it's amazing. I've watched as my refugee and immigrant friends, once stepping off the plane in this completely new and different city, have put down roots, established themselves, started businesses, gone to college, gotten jobs, purchased homes and cars. And it's amazing to see the impact on their lives, but also the impact on ours. It's not just about economic development, it's about relationships. I know that we can all remember around this time last year, a massive explosion rocked the south side of our city. 2 people were killed, 5 homes completely demolished. More than 80 houses were damaged. And that night, dozens of residents of an entire neighborhood lost their homes. Well, in the aftermath of this horrible tragedy, the refugee community on Indy's south side got to work. They raised over $10,000 to aid their neighbors. I spoke to one of the families who donated to this cause, and the interesting thing is they haven't been in Indianapolis that long. They fled horrible persecution in their home country, and they only arrived here recently. Today, they both work long hours at factory jobs just to keep the family afloat. They're still learning English. They found a way to give. They told me that they knew what it was like to lose their home. You know, if we think about this, it's amazing what happens, oh, there's the picture, there we go, of when we welcome refugees and immigrants to our community, the relationships that can develop. When I asked my friend Biak how he's made it this far in such a completely new and different community, he has a simple answer for me. People in Indianapolis welcomed me. Now, I want you to go back with me again to that moment, your first moment. You know, you might not be there on the first day of high school. You might not be there at the airport when someone arrives. But I'm certain that there is someone in your life, someone in your circle, someone in your city who is feeling the anxiety of a new place, a new experience. You are a part of those crucial first moments that people from around the world will spend in our city. Over the past few years that I've had the privilege of living here in Indianapolis, during all these trips to the airport and little lessons on how to adjust the thermostat or climb into a car seat, I've realized something. You know, I thought that I was trying to change people's lives for the better. I was the one being changed. Meeting people, courageous people from all over the world, and being a part of welcoming them to our city has been one of the most powerful experiences of my life. Get to know someone better today. Walk across the street and meet your neighbor. Invite a newly arriving refugee family to dinner, or volunteer to mentor a refugee or immigrant family. Together, let's take the initiative to get to know our neighbors. Let's invest in those crucial first moments, believing in the power of welcome. Thank you very much.